Everybody, welcome back to Global Conflict TCG. Ryan here again with you. So this is devlog number 2. It's actually this is actually going to be the second take of devlog number 2. I filmed this earlier in the day, and I kind of did like a working devlog session where I started like working on the startup manager in Global Conflict. And gosh, I got like 40 minutes in, and I hit a snag, a pretty serious snag in the FSM that really kind of derailed me for, all kidding aside, probably like 2.5 hours. so so I had to stop the video. Long story short, the problem was I was having an issue removing cards from the player when hand parent, removing objects from that parent, while also at the same time was hitting a snag with card counts for whatever reason. The way the flows were set up, I was starting to gain, like as we would go through the flow, we would gain an extra card from out of nowhere. so so it was like these phantom cards showing up in the arrays. So it was pretty wild. So I deleted that video because the process I went through, while I ultimately ended up coming up with the solution, it was like a really like roundabout way before I figured it out. So let me get you up to speed. If you watch the first video, I appreciate you. If not, the quick recap is just that I'm making Global Conflict TCG in Unity. I'm using Playmaker to do it. I'm using arrays and Playmaker FSMs. We're currently working on the startup manager right now. So the startup manager, what that's supposed to handle, if you ever played Pokemon TCG, when you start a game of Pokemon, you flip a coin. Player gets to choose who goes first, but after that, you draw 7 cards out of your deck into your hand, and then from there you check your hand to see if you have any basic units, and then you kind of go through the process. You put one down on the active spot and you start the game. So that we're working on that startup manager, and in the first video we went over how to draw 7 cards from your deck, explained all that, went over loops, talked about arrays, how we draw the 7 cards. We instantiated them off the playing field and then moved them to the hand when we drew them out of our deck. So if you need to know about that kind of stuff, check out the last video. But this one, so I'll go over some of the key changes. In the last video, the startup manager had an action up here at the top, and let me kind of blow this up a little bit. Had an action up here at the top that would basically say, it's actually right here. It would get the array from the card, the complete like set list, global variable array. It would take that and it would go ahead and create the objects off of the playing field. So I still have that process, but I actually decoupled it from the startup manager. I felt that it was getting a little bit too cumbersome inside of this FSM. So what I ended up doing is I created another FSM here called load deck. And if I click on that one, you can see it's a very simple FSM. It's just, at start, array get next from complete card set, say the result from complete card set, go to, establish a loop, create the object, set the name, array add, same process I did in the last video, and I'll loop through the entire array until that is finished. Once it's finished, then we'll go to state number 3 here, which is actually send an event. So once this is done, it's going to send an event to our test startup manager FSM. And so you can see now this FSM actually has an event that it's waiting for, which is ready to start game. So there is a delay now with this, and it's kind of nice. We're just decoupling and decluttering. This FSM is getting to be really big. And I'll probably find other ways at some point to decouple things and to spread it around to different FSMs. But so that is the big major change. So before this flow won't even start until it receives this ready to start event. Same thing. So we'll wait 1 sec. Now it's wait 1 second. We're still gonna shuffle the deck. We're gonna do an array get next. I actually took the loop off. So this okay. So I actually should talk about this. The issue with cards magically spawning, I'm supposed to have 20 objects, 20 cards, and I would run the loop. I would run the actions, and I would start with 20, and then I would end up with 21, and then after a few times I'd end up with 22 actions. the problem with it was actually this state here, where I'm pulling the cards out of my deck, 7 cards. I actually had to deactivate this loop, and instead on the array get next, I'm using this action to conduct the loop. You can see I have the loop event here and have the finish event. But the big key is that I actually hard coded in here the indexes to the range of indexes to grab. So you could see the start index of 0, end index of 7. So that is getting me the 7 cards that I need. I actually thought it was 0 and 6, but after testing, it's actually 0 and 7. But anyways, so once I set these index, that fixed everything. It fixed the entire process. And actually, let's go ahead and take a look, because it's a thing of beauty. Check it out. Here we go. So you're gonna see this thing flash. Go ahead and take a look at the cards here. You're gonna see the cards pop up. You're gonna see the deck counter here. This is gonna drop to 13, and then it's gonna pop up to 20. Basically, what's happening? When I hit play, it's gonna draw 7 cards. It's gonna see that none of the 7 cards in the hands are basic units, because I have all of the variables turned off for the cards, so they're not going to show if they're a basic unit or not, even though technically they are. So it's going to read the cards in the hand. It's going to see that, oh, none of these are basic units, and then it's going to dispose of those cards, send them back to the deck, shuffle the deck, redraw a new 7. And so you're going to see this counter go from 20 to 13, and then it's going to go back to 20, back to 13. And then you'll see the chart, or the flows will actually light up as it goes through the process. So check it out. And it's just an infinite loop. It's just gonna keep on going, because it's not gonna find any basics. So here we go. All right, it's loading. 20 all the way down to 13, and boom, back to 20, and 13, back to 20, and you can see it's just working through it. And if we look here on the hierarchy, we're adding cards to our hands here. We're adding 7 cards, and then we're seeing, oh, none of them are basics. We're sending them back. If we look at our card repository, which, like I talked about in the last video, this is the kind of like the physical representation of the deck. You can see that the repository is getting worked through. So it's working. And then our deck array counter here is showing us that our deck array is being counted accurately too. So this, I'm not kidding, this took me probably almost 3 hours today to get this worked out, just to the point where we're able to look at the hand and determine what are basics and what not, and to actually have it cycle through and not give me phantom cards, or not like throw an error or anything. So yeah, it's working great now. Like it's run through probably 15 times now easily without an error. So mission accomplished. This is what I was trying to accomplish in my first run of Devlog 2, but I hit a huge snag. So like I said, the problem was this loop here. This loop was causing a huge issue, so I disabled it. I actually just set the indexes that I need from the array. It's been working great ever since. So another thing, I ended up hitting another. That's one of the biggest snags. I actually hit another snag too. So we'll come down. We'll take a look next in the chain. I have this state here. Check next, or get next child. What we're doing, we're checking the hand for basics. This is actually no problem at all. So I covered this in my first take of this video, but I have a get FSM bool. So what this does is it's going to pull each card, or each card object, from the player 1 hand object. So it's getting the child. And then when it gets that child, it's going to check FSM bool, and then do a bool test for the variable is basic unit. And it's going to look to see if that bool is true or false. If the bool is true, then that card means it's a basic unit. And so this is what it looks like. If I click on this prefab here, this is my NHA card here. So you can see the NHA. I have an FSM called card properties. I'm going to open that up. So eventually what I'm going to do is anything related to the card, like whether it's a basic, a stage 1, retreat cost, attack cost, all those type of, ints and bools and things I need, attributes of the card, I'm going to eventually have them in a single FSM like this with the variable attached. So what we can see is I just have this really simple FSM to state 2. All it says, set bool value for variable is basic. Right now it's false because it's not checked, but I'm going to go ahead and change that to true. So there we go, it's checked. And if we go back, so now when we run the startup manager again, it's going to, once it finds an NHA light infantry card, it's going to see that, oh, that is basic, bull is true, and then it's going to go ahead and let the process continue. So we'll go ahead and check that. We'll just run it through again so you can see. On success, it's going to end up in state number 8 here. So we'll see, and nope, no NHA. It's going to run through again. Oh, there's one. Found it. There's one right there. It hit it. Deviate on the, so you can see here, did a bull test, was true, finished, went to state number 8. Perfect. That's exactly what I needed to do. So we know that we have a basic unit in hand. So I set that up on my first take of devlog 2. So this is working great. No problems at all. Super easy. I have this action in here, this state in here, and actually I'll probably just take it out. It was for the done button, but I don't need it anymore. I had to use it for testing, so we'll take that out. So once it goes through the hand, and if it doesn't find any basic units, you can see the action here. It'll keep running through. Get Next Child will keep running through the entire hand until it has nothing left. And once it has no childs left to give, the finished event is going to trigger, which is called no basic units in hand. And so that'll send down to recycle cards here, where I start another Get Next Child action. And in this case, I'm doing something a little bit funky, but I had to do it this way. There is a limitation with the action of Get Next Child that I found out. You cannot use the action Get Next Child and then start a loop and then change the parent of one of those children to like another object within the game. That's what I was trying to do, is change the parent. Because down here, if we look at, there's an action here, find child, and then reset child object. So this is moving the child of the player one hand, which is on the screen, and resetting them back to the repository so they can go back to the deck. You cannot have this set parent action in a loop with a Get Next Child action. It does not work. I did everything under the sun to try to get that thing to work. What would happen? It would cycle through 6 of the 7 cards, and it would stop at the last card. And it's actually a known glitch. I went on to the Huton Games forums and found a post about it. You can't have a set parent object with a Get Child action in the same loop if you're going to change the parent of the child that Get Next Child is getting. So I know it sounds confusing, but it doesn't work. So my workaround for it, and this was another reason why it took me so long from the first take, was I had to find a way around it. So in this first loop, this loop here, I'm getting Next Child. I am getting the name of that child. I'm going to add that child to a string array. This is just a local array. I actually created the variable in here. Let's go back to the state. So it's just list of mulligan cards. It's just a local array. It's not global or anything, but what it does, it's a string array, and it's going to get the name of that child object that we pull, get the name, save that name in an array list, and then it's going to also array add to the player one deck. So we're going to take those cards from the hand. Since we don't have any basic units, we're going to go ahead and add them back to the player one deck array. So all good there. We're just adding stuff and getting a name. But then after this loop is complete, we got to go to this next state here. And now we're going to, instead of using Get Next Child, we're going to use array Get Next, because like I said, we can't reset the parent of an object and also have a Get Next Child action within that same loop. So to get around that, I'm using array Get Next. I'm grabbing from that list of mulligan cards, which is a string array. I'm just doing the same thing. I'm running a loop event until it runs through the entire array. It's only going to be 7 cards. The result card name to remove, I'm calling it a name. We're going to go here. I started with Get Child. It ends up not being the correct action, so I just go ahead and remove that. But Find Child, this is that one we used earlier in my first devlog. Find Child action works great. So we specify the game object, which is the player one hand. We find the child using the card name to remove from that string array, and then we store the result as found child hand. And then we come up here and that now after all of those like 7 different actions, we can finally reset the parent of the object in the player 1 hand. And so we do that by specifying the found child, and then we reset their parent back to the card repository and then reset their local position. So that's why you're able to see the cards that are in the hand, they get reset and sent back to the repository. That is like a super complicated roundabout way to get things done, but you could see I ran that flow. I mean, it ran through like probably over 20 times flawlessly. So I'm pretty proud of that. It took a lot of experimentation to figure that out. So if somebody builds a deck or some type of game like this, I hope somebody helps you out. And if it does help you out, smash the like button, please. I spent probably 3 hours of my life trying to figure this out. So that's good. And now that that's done, I had to also take this out of the loop too. This was throwing a huge issue. Removing the cards from the array, this array here where we're getting array next, you also cannot have this action in the same loop. It was giving me all sorts of issues. So once the loop completes, I go to this next state and I do an array remove all. So that's from that list of mulligan cards. Those are all the string names. We just go ahead and vacate that entire list, wipe it out, and then my last action here is an int add. So I have this global variable for number of player 1 mulligans. So in Pokemon, when you draw 7 cards from your deck and you don't have any basics, your opponent gets a mulligan, so they get a free, they get to draw 1 card for each time you get a mulligan and have to reshuffle and draw again. So I'm counting that here with int add value of 1. That's a global variable, so the player 2 startup manager will be able to access this int value. And this will count every time we have to mulligan and run through and draw another 7 cards. Once that's done, we loop it all the way back up to wait a second. And this will start the process over again. It'll shuffle the deck, draw the cards, check for basics, do the whole thing over again until it finds a basic unit. So hopefully that makes sense. And if everything all works out, we find a basic unit, it'll go to state number 8. And then we can continue on with the process. So yeah, I'll click it open again. It's a long, convoluted process, but it works. Like you could look at the counters, you could look at the cards, they're all popping up, they're doing what they need to do. Look here, we found an NHA card, so perfect. That is a basic unit. We could drop it in there. Oh, disappeared. That's okay. But anyways, yeah, so this is working. So I'm going to probably leave this off here. I spent a ton of time on this today. I'm kind of burned out. So I'm just happy to know. I'm going to go to bed happy knowing that this startup manager is in the state that it's in right now. It's working good. And so I would say, keep an eye. The next devlog that I do, we're going to continue working on the startup manager. We're going to dig in. There's other things we need to do. We need to add a state to check the player 2 mulligans and how many number of mulligans they had. So we got to check that. We have to start adding in actions for making sure that the player 1, once they get their hand, we have to allow them time to place a unit in an active spot. So we got to do that. We also got to allow them time to place a unit onto their base, so we got to put that in. So I've actually worked on the active stuff already in a previous build, so that shouldn't be too hard, but we got to do that. We also have to load 6 prize cards into the prize card spot, so we got to do that. That's going to be kind of fun because when we add that in, we need to pull those cards from the card repository, but also at the same time when we do that, we need to activate the card back so you can't actually see what cards they are. So that'll be fun. Let's see what else. So yeah, we check active, we check bench, we check the prize cards, and I think that's it. I think that's all. I think at that point then the entire startup manager would be done. And then of course the very last thing that we'll add to the startup manager will be a send event action, where we'll send an event to the turn manager to go ahead and start counting turns. So fun. That's kind of like the big overarching, I don't know how many devlogs it's going to be, but I don't know. We'll probably be like 20 devlogs or something. I don't know, but should be fun. If you guys are enjoying this stuff, I hope you guys like it. I'm doing it to help you guys and to help myself. It also helps me to kind of go over everything that I do. But yeah, catch you guys on the next one. Take care.